All right, so I have this question here from Quado Quado Amor, and Quado is from Ghana. He says, "My question is not design related. I have this thought: could people from the past still be living there, and could others already be in the future? Just because we are experiencing the present doesn't mean the past isn't still happening for someone, or that the future isn't happening for someone else. We are in 2024, but I keep wondering how the past stays the past and the future stays the future. Does time really exist?" This is a good question. It's a really good question. It's very, very different from a lot of questions that I get. But funny enough, it's interesting that you're asking this question because it's something I am very interested in time. And I think it's something we all should be interested in. It's a very, very relevant question because the way we view time would affect the way we manage it and the way we live our lives. So time is a very important subject matter. In fact, understanding the concept of time allows us to focus our life in different ways. So if you do not if you're not interested in the concept of time, then you're not interested in the concept of life. And if you're not interested in the concept of life, you are not interested in the concept of God. You see, God, a lot of God is is defined by time. So if you really want to know how awesome God is, you must see God through the perspective of time. And so time is really an important subject matter. Now, I wouldn't say I have my thoughts totally formed on this. I don't think I have my thoughts totally formed on this. So I don't think I'll come to any conclusion. I'll just share with you as far as I think. You understand? So some of you will be left hanging because truly I am left hanging on this subject matter too. But I I agree with Quado on one thing, that time is not linear. It's not forward and backwards. No, it's not going forward and going back. Although we live time like that, you understand? We live our lives going forward and backwards, but I don't think that is the only way in which time exists. I think that is the way we are able to understand time, but that's not the way that's not the only way time exists. I believe that there is a um linear existence of life, of time. And what linear means is yesterday, today, tomorrow. I cannot go back to yesterday and I cannot see tomorrow. That's linear. You understand? So one is behind, one is in the middle, and one is forward. So things happen in a sequence. A lot of us have that mentality of time. And that's okay because that's how our minds have been programmed to see time. But I don't think time only has a linear expression. I think a lot of us as humans have that linear expression of life. But I doubt if God has a linear expression of life. I think there are two expressions of life and time. And I think there is what is called the linear, which I just explained now. And then there's the areal. And I'm going to try to explain what the areal is. And it's with this areal that I really believe everything happens at once. Not sequentially, but happens at once. Do you understand? Concurrently, everything is happening at once. And so, you know, I once read a book, and I'll recommend this book to anyone that really wants to understand time. There's a chapter in this book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. It's an incredible book. And he talks about his knowledge of God from being a cynic and an atheist. You know, he started out an atheist, didn't believe in the existence of God. And that helped him to understand God better because he questioned God. He questioned those thoughts of God and the existence of God and a lot of things that Christianity seems to propagate. And he came to an understanding by questioning. So he had a deeper understanding of Christianity, not just something he was taught, but something he figured out by criticizing. You understand? So I'll recommend that book to people. Mere Christianity is a great book by C.S. Lewis. Now, in one of the chapters, he talked about time. And you see, why I believe time is not linear, it's not just linear, is because the concept of God in itself defies the linear mentality of time that we might have. The concept of God. Now, there are three characteristics that define God. Three major characteristics. One is omnipotent. That means God is all powerful. There is nothing he cannot do. Nothing he cannot do. He can do anything. You understand? So he's all powerful. All power is in his hand. You understand? He defines the limit of power. He is the measure of power in itself. Now, God is also omniscient. Now, omniscient means that God is all knowing, knows everything. All knowledge resides with God. There is nothing God does not know. If God doesn't know it, it doesn't exist. You understand? If God doesn't know it, doesn't exist. It's not knowledge. He is the standard of all knowledge, and both finite knowledge and infinite knowledge. So God is a custodian of knowledge. In fact, as immediately God, it crosses the mind of God, and I'll put it this way, it becomes knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? So he defines knowledge with his every thought. So every thought that goes through God's mind becomes knowledge. You understand? So God is omniscient. Now, the third one is that God is omnipresent. Now, this is where time comes in. And that means God is everywhere at the same time. Now, a lot of us, when we think of God being omnipresent, we are like, God is everywhere. So he's in Nigeria, he's in Spain, he's in Cameroon, he's in Ghana, he's in Brazil. Very true. But that's one dimension of omnipresent. It also means God is in today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Do you understand? So there are a lot of dimensions to it. It's present in it. So for God to be present in today, yesterday, and tomorrow, it means that yesterday exists and tomorrow exists. Do you understand? God is present in all those three dimensions, and God cannot be present in nothing. So if tomorrow has gone, that means God is present in nothing. That means sorry, yesterday has gone, not tomorrow. Because yesterday, what we say, yesterday has gone. But if yesterday has gone and God is in yesterday, it means God is present in nothing, and God cannot be present in nothing. You understand? That means yesterday still exists. If God is present in tomorrow and tomorrow is a mystery, it means that God is present in a mystery, and God cannot be present in the mystery because it's all knowledge. You understand? And mystery means there is no knowledge, and God cannot exist in a place where there is no knowledge. So if God exists in the future, it means the future is existing and it's not a mystery. It's only a mystery to you. So God exists in the present, in the past, and in the future. It means these three entities are still existing. They never go, and they are never a mystery. You understand? But because we see life as linear, this is very hard for us to understand. But I thought about it once. I said, and I kind of took account of what people say. People that have near-death experience, there's something they always say. And that thing always interested me. I never understood what it meant or how they could experience that. And when I spent some time thinking about it, I got to understand to an extent what they meant. And have you ever heard someone that says they almost died, about to have an accident, and they say, my whole life flashed before me? Very common thing that people say. My whole life flashed before me. When they say someone held a gun to their head, and at that point their whole life flashed before them. I never understood what they meant, because I'm like, how can your whole life? I am 43 right now, and I thought about it. For my whole life to flash before me, if someone is holding a gun to my head, or something life-threatening is about to happen, what does that mean? And I looked at it. If life is linear, for my whole life to flash before me, I must start from 1980 to 1981, 1982, 1983, and I must go through every single day of those years, every single 365 days of those years, for me to come to 2024, for my life, for my whole life to flash before me. So I tried to do the calculation. If it took 1 second for every day of my life, my 43 years on earth, to flash before me, that means per day it will take 1 second. That means today, if they were to flash before me, it will take a duration of 1 second. It will take me over 4 hours for my life to flash before me. Over 4 hours before my life can flash before me. If it took 1 second, if it took half a second for my entire life to flash before me, it will take over 2 hours. Half a second for my entire life to flash before me. That's like watching a 2-hour movie. A 2-hour movie is not a flash anymore. You understand? But these people will tell you their entire life flashed before them and they can't explain it. And I kind of understood after a while thinking about it. How can your entire life flash before you? Your entire life can never flash before you if you are looking at life linearly. And what that means is, I'll try to give this description. Living linearly is like living in a house. You cannot be in every room at the same time. Very impossible. You have to leave one room to go into another room, to go into another room. But once you've left one room, you can't be in the other room at the same time. So if you're in the kitchen, you can't know what's going on in the parlor. If you're in the parlor, you can't know what's going on in the bathroom. You understand? You have to leave the kitchen to go to the bathroom, because that's the linear experience. You have to walk through that experience in the house. You're walking through. That's the linear experience. You're walking through. So you can never know. So for you to have a total experience, to flash through the house, you must run through the house. And that will take you time. You understand? But once you leave one, you can't know what you are leaving behind. And that's how we live life. But then I now thought, how can you experience a house at once and know everything that is going on in every single room of the house at once? Because that's the only way you can flash through that house, to look through it and look at it and see everything in the house in 1 second. How? Your position must change from a linear one to an area one. Now, I studied architecture, and there's something called architectural plans that we used to draw. So we drew the house from above without the roof. So you can see every room at once. And that's how you can experience the house in 1 second. You can see everything. So I realize now that when people tell you that life flashes before them, what it means is that they stop having a linear experience, and for a moment, they have an area experience. They see their life exactly the way God sees it, and they are all of a sudden above their lives, and they see everything in like they like looking at a room where you are seeing when you were born. You can see yourself in the hospital, see when your mother was pushing you out, when you started school. Everything is happening in each room. You are seeing it all at once from above, not from within. And they are all happening. They are all happening at the same time. I believe that's how time happens. Time is observed aerially, but that's only a spiritual observation. When you look at a physical experience of life, life is experienced linearly. That's why we think about yesterday, today, and stuff, and we think everything has ended, but it hasn't. They are still happening. You understand? They are still happening. And that's why prayer is so powerful. You can pray for somebody now, and what you are praying for the person is affecting what they were doing in the past. So I'll put it this way. It can get confusing, and I'll tell you, it can get confusing. That's why you never get tired of praying, even when it seems like all hope is lost. Some people have, let me say, they have cancer, lung cancer, in a very, very bad, you understand, where the doctor has written them off. They have 4 days to live. And then you start praying for them. What are you praying for? The doctor already told you the lungs are far gone. And then after a while, you don't stop. That's why you never stop praying. You never give up in prayer. Because prayer goes through all these dimensions. And what the prayer now does is that it now goes to the concurrent past of that person. And that person, when they started smoking, in the past, it just makes them stop. They just have it. "Oh, I'm going to stop smoking now. I'm just going to stop." You understand? And they stop. And because they have stopped, they begin to alter that present state of that person with lung cancer. So it's like a book that is written. We experience a book linearly. So when you are reading a book, you read chapter 1 of the book, and you are reading about a man, and the man was kidnapped. And that's the end of chapter 1, and you're like, "Man, I can't believe what happened. He was kidnapped. I can't wait to get to chapter 2." You see, you are feeling the tension now, but the author already knows what's going to happen to that man in chapter 22. You understand? And so the author is never worried about the outcome of the man. It is you, because what you've only experienced chapter 1, but that man, everything has been written for him till chapter 22. Now, the difference between that and life is that a book is rigid in the outcome. The difference between that and life is that life is not rigid. It keeps it's a self-fulfilling entity. You understand? So things keep on changing in the past entity, altering the future, altering the present. So it has alternative ends. You understand? Unlike a book or a movie that has a rigid end, life has an alternative end, and that's why the devil keeps fighting too. Because he knows at each point he can interrupt something, and even if one of your alternative ends is to be good, he wants to interrupt it to corrupt it. You understand? So I don't want to confuse people here, but I really feel like life is not linear, life is aerial, and everything can happen at once, and everything is happening at once. And that's why when you listen to people, when they talk about having an out of body experience, what they always say, their body floats above. They begin to have an aerial experience. And because they are not fully dead yet, some of them don't lift up to the place where they see everything, but they begin to watch their own life as a movie. So they don't experience it anymore. They are watching it happen. You understand? So, is time static? No. Does time exist? Yes, but not in the form that we think about it, in back and forth, and the past doesn't exist again. No, the past does exist. God exists in the past. He's still there because he's still existing. He cannot exist in nothing. God exists in the future. It's not a mystery to him. God cannot exist in a mystery. He exists in knowledge. Do you understand? And God exists in the present too. And the only difference is that we are only present conscious. God is all dimensions conscious, and is never an end to a consciousness of that dimension. It's a very complicated question, but then very interesting question too. And I want to thank Quado for asking that question. There are quite a number of content out there in terms of series and stuff like that. The one I watched of recent called was it Darkness or so? Pretty interesting series. It talks about time, and it talks about. I think the synopsis of it is there's a cave. There was a particular cave that people used to go into, and in going into that cave, they would experience time, and they would go into the past. And it's a pretty interesting documentary. I would advise anyone to go ahead and watch it. You know, so they go into the cave, and they come out in, I think, 30 years. So it's either 30 years forward or 30 years back. And it's interesting how what they did in the past would always affect the present or the future. It is an interesting concept, but I think it's something we should open our minds to. But those are my thoughts. I stand to be corrected on any one of it, but basically those are my thoughts. If I have any further thoughts on that, I'll be sure to share.